Igor, you and I shall be at the very heart of a scientific enterprise that will change the world. We shall create a life out of death. It's alive.
One of the things that struck me most about this movie was the tone of it. I really didn't expect so much drama, horror, and comedy in it.
Right.
So was that present in the script when you first got it?
Oh yeah, I mean Max Landis sort of cherry-picked all the good ideas from all the Frankenstein movies, stole them, regurgitated them in this kind of incredibly interesting, dynamic script, you know, and it was tonally, it was the one thing that kind of drew me in was how interesting this idea was that, you know, you take a character that you think you're familiar with, and then you realize you're not familiar with him at all because you equate Victor Frankenstein with the monster, and you think that's the Frankenstein is called the monster. That's the monster's name, not the scientist. So it was good to give the scientist back his name, you know, and then from there, and then they had this other character of Igor that you thought you knew was just a hunchback, kind of crazy-looking dude who would just pull the switch every so often, you know. And then to give him a character and to bring those two in together and to surround them with science and invention in Victorian London was kind of a bit of a headfuck at times, you know, but really interesting.
How was it gauging all of that on set, though, and kind of making sure that when you went into the editing room, you had kind of the right proportions of each in there?
To me, that's what it was. That was what it's very Frankenstein about the script itself. It's kind of bits, you know. There's bits of everything put together, and like our little monster, you know, our Gordon monster. It's such a shock to people when they watch it because I always see them. I always go in for that moment because they're like, "What the hell is this?" And there's this little monster thing that you don't really expecting because they're just kind of messing about and try to figure it out. And I like that. Tonally, it sort of brought science into a more interesting place. You know, that it wasn't all just dark and horror-y and there's a sort of gothicness to it. We kind of deliberately stayed away from the dark and gothic and went for something that was a wee bit more inventive. And you know, the colours, even the colour palette of the film is very bright and very colourful because, you know, why do we in cinema depict Victorian London as people all buttoned up with crazy funky accents, you know? So we went for something that just felt very modern to us, you know.
The apartment set in particular really caught my eye too.
Right.
There's just so many details in there that you kind of want to just have the time to sit and look around.
I know.
Are there any tiny things that you kind of hope people catch?
Oh yeah, there's lots of stuff that Eve Stewart, who's the production designer, she spends so much time in everything from real fish hanging from the ceiling to, you know, just to all those machineries that she built, all these mad machines. And, you know, because we approached the science in a very real way. We actually phoned people in America up and says, "Can you bring somebody back to life?" They were like, "Hell yeah." And they would tell us how to do it. And we kind of went, okay, there's 5 different stages. If you were to simplify it, right? I couldn't really do it, but there's 5 stages of bringing people to life. So you start stage 1, which is heating up the body, and then you've got to put the liquid, i.e. the blood, and you've got to move it around, and then, you know, there's all sorts, and put the electricity in, and there's all sorts of ways of doing it. That's what I was told anyway. So we went, okay, well, we'll have some of that. So we kind of approached the science as real in our own heads as we could have done, you know, without really checking it, but we had a go at it, and we not had a go at making a monster. We had a go at making the science in the film feel quite real, and there's a physicality to the science. You know, James has to quite literally take the monster and throw him across the other side of the castle and throw that across, and then we had this big, a bit like this, a bit of circular tower that you had to physically kind of get that thing up in the air, you know, and we had to do that. We did it all through the camera because we had no money to do all CG or motion capture or whatever.
I'm kind of curious now. What are the other 5 steps?
Well, I don't really know. There's the heating up, there's the liquid, injecting liquid, there's keeping the body sort of rocking so that the liquid gets through there. There's the electricity, and then there's the Lazarus fork is what we use, but there's the honing of the electricity from the sky. I mean, look, you know, I had to go. I'm going to
go home and like concoct my little experiment and be like, this goes crazy.
Be half hamster or half man. Science has always been at that place, hasn't it, where you're not really sure but whether or not science is either going to work or if it's going to hinder or help, you know. And it's that dark area that is interesting to everybody, and it still goes on. And what makes the film and what makes Frankenstein, the book, Mary Shelley's book, really interesting because it hasn't really moved on from there, you know. We're still talking about what if. what if we could make a human? What if we could do this? And you know, what would it be like? So that was always interesting. And my favourite line in the movie is when Daniel says to him, and they're designing the monster, and James says, a flat head, and Daniel says, why? He says, because I can. And that sort of sums up our movie, if you like, you know.
What about the science behind how he fixes Igor's back? Is that could that happen? Is that actually how someone might get a condition like that fixed?
Probably, yeah, probably. It's an abscess, isn't it? That's just growing and rotting and stuff. I mean, I remember that day of filming, and James, the script wasn't really like that. He doesn't really take it in his mouth and spits it out, but James insisted on doing that, and all the producers were slightly nervous at what's this guy doing, and so he kind of inhabits this Frankenstein role very much so, and yeah, because we had lots of gore and lots of stuff going on. That's science for you, you know. You've got to get your hands dirty.
How much do we get from your first cut of the movie in what we see in the final version on screen? Was a lot of it cut out?
Oh, that's an interesting question. No, actually, because we didn't do one extra day of reshoots or anything, so I think we cut out maybe 2 scenes in the whole movie, maybe perhaps more, but not that much. So, yeah, I mean, look, here's the process of making a film. Is, as you know better than anybody, is you make your director's cut. The director's cut goes and gets tested in front of 400 people, and it makes you so nervous you want to throw up. And then they kind of inform you about what works and what maybe doesn't work.
What kinds of things did you learn from the test screening process?
I'll tell you what I did learn. I'd learned that because we had another story thread at the end, which has to do with the character of Lorelei. And I think it was too much for the audience to take in, like try to save her and try to do everything with her. Meanwhile, these 2 men were kind of falling apart, but they were trying to come back together again, that friendship. So we kind of quickly realized that people were really interested in the friendship. And so the kind of love story didn't take a back seat because it's still there, but it wasn't the end of the film, I mean, it wasn't wasn't how the film ends with a big lovey kind of moment of, oh, I love you and kiss and I'm glad you all happened, and we kind of tempered that a little bit. So it's more about the friendship,
You have the chance to be part of
Oh,
something.
what? Being electrocuted?
Chased by monsters and hunted by the police.
Well, if you're going to concentrate on the dark side...
Be careful, Mr. Frankenstein. You toy with wrathful forces.
I cannot argue with that.